Well, I was really hoping to be able to film today out on the river, but Mother Nature had some different thoughts. We have some pretty gusty winds out there. We have a cold front moving in, so I thought it would be better to brave the elements in here down in my basement and spend some time at the vise. I want to do something a little different today. I want to tie a dry fly. I know I do a lot of nymph videos, but I want to tie a dry fly, and I want to start with something that is really fun to tie, really fun to fish, but more importantly, it's a pretty easy tie. And what I like about it is that it's only 3 materials. It's deer hair, it is CDC, and then some super fine dubbing. I call it the Deer Duck Caddis. Really all it is a deer hair and CDC caddis. I have seen it tied a lot of different ways in a lot of different videos, and you can really vary the materials. So the materials that I'm going to share today, like in all my videos, you know, don't feel like you have to have the exact ones. I want to show you the concepts today using CDC combined with deer hair, some of the effects that you can get from that. So take that away. You can use elk hair, you can use different color dubbing, different color CDC. You can do a lot with this, but we're gonna spend some time today at the vise. We're gonna tie the Deer Duck Caddis. So stick around and let's learn how to tie this together. So I'm starting here with a dry fly hook. I'm just putting on a bed of thread, UTC 70 in tan. I'm going to wrap that all the way back to the bend of the hook, and then I'm just going to snip off the excess. The next step is to dub the body. Any super fine dubbing that you have will work fine. Here I'm actually using Orvis beaver dubbing. It's a really soft dubbing, and it just goes on nice and evenly on the thread. Learning to dub is one of the hardest things when you're getting started. It's really easy to overdub your flies, so you want to just take your time, make sure you're making a nice, even dubbing noodle. I'm going to push the dubbing noodle up to the hook and start to make touching turns up the shank. This is going to make the body of the fly. I'm going to keep it nice and even. Don't really want to taper here. And I want to make sure there's enough distance between the body and the eye of the hook. Now I'm going to make the underwing of the fly. This is one of the parts of this fly that I think make it really unique. And I'm going to use a CDC feather here. Again, any color really is fine. I'm using gray. I like natural colors. We're just going to tie that in to form that underwing of the fly. And once you do that, you're just going to pull it back, make a couple turns in there to secure it. And then you're going to want to snip off those butt ends. All right, once you have that nice and flush, then you're going to want to start the overwing. And here I'm taking out a section of deer hair, and when you clip that deer hair, you want to make sure you take the butt ends and you really clean all that underfur. There's a little brush I'm using. I want to get all of that underfur out of there. All right, once that deer hair is ready to go, you're going to put it in a stacker. You want to be able to align the tip. So you're going to put it in that stacker, you're going to give it a couple of thumps, and when you pull that out, you're going to see how nice and even the tips are. Alright, so you're going to lay all of that deer hair on top of the CDC and then switch it into your other hand. I like to cord my thread up anytime I'm working with deer hair or elk hair, and then I just give it a loose wrap, and when you pull straight up, you got to be careful not to break anything here. This is an easy time to break your thread, but then I'm just going to do a few more securing wraps before I pull the deer hair back, and I get a couple of wraps underneath there. I just want to make sure that's all nice and tight. Alright, I'm going to sneak a whip finish in here. You don't have to do this, but I just put all this work and I don't want to lose it, so and I like to get my thread out of the way, put it over on the cradle. If you were just doing an X caddis or an elk hair or deer hair caddis, here you would just trim this up and pretty much be done. But we're going to be adding an additional CDC collar. So I want to take my scissors, I'm going to take my time here, and I'm going to snip that all out. I want to try to take all of those butt ends out of there. So now I just want to create a smooth base for the CDC collar. So I'm just going to take my thread and I'm going to make a few turns. I'm going to tighten everything down and just going to make some wraps and just try to get a smooth base in there so that I can start with the CDC collar. To do that, I'm going to make a dubbing loop. So I'm just going to wrap that around my fingers and secure that in. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my dubbing twister ready because I'm going to be using that. But before I get into the dubbing twister, I'm going to be inserting CDC feathers. Here I've doubled up two CDC feathers. They're in gray. I like the natural colors. And I'm just putting them right into that loop together and then using long scissors to snip them. Some people use a CDC clip here, but I just put it right in the loop, cut it flush, and then I start to twist. And this is what's going to create that really buggy CDC collar. And then once you do that, you're just going to start to wrap it around the front of the fly. You want to stroke those fibers back. You want to keep them going back, and they're going to start to get intertwined with that deer hair. And that's really going to be a nice combination. You're just going to keep doing that until you get it up to the head of the fly where you want to try to secure it in. It's a little messy here. You're going to crowd the eye of the hook a little bit, but that's okay because you can go back in and trim that out. All right, so now you're just going to take the thread that you used for the dubbing loop. You're going to want to cross that over with your main thread and make some turns right behind the eye of the hook. You're going to try to form that head, and you'll be able to sneak another whip finish in there. And again, if you've crowded the eye of the hook a little bit, don't worry about it. The CDC's soft. You'll be able to go in there with your scissors and just kind of snip away and clean it up once you're done with the fly. So for the final step, I take just a soft wire brush and I just kind of mix all that CDC in with the deer hair and finish up the fly that way. So there you go, the Deer Duck Caddis. All right, so here it is, the Deer Duck Caddis. I hope you enjoyed tying it. I think you're going to really enjoy fishing it. This is one of my favorite patterns, especially when I get a little bit later into the season. When I feel confident that fish are looking up not only on the surface but just below the surface, when dry dropper really becomes effective. This is one of my favorite flies to use in a dry dropper rig. I do a lot of tight line dry dropper, so I'll tie this one on, and that's why I like the bigger size, and I try to bulk it up a little bit so that it can suspend a 2.4 millimeter nymph, a thread Frenchie, a pheasant tail, a zebra mid, because that CDC makes it really soft when it lands into a calm or a flat area, but it's sturdy enough that it will it'll stay up in riffles. You can put some powder on it and you can get it to ride pretty high if you want it to do that. So it really does a lot of different things. Later in the summer, I still have success on it. I think fish in the summer will often take it as a terrestrial. So it's just one of those all-around flies that you want to have in your box. I love the mix of the CDC and the deer hair. I love the way that they work together. They just give the fly some really nice movement. Hang in there, it's February, so we're about a month and a half away from starting to see some bugs out on the water. And like I said, the weather wasn't cooperative today, but I'm grateful to be here anyway. And as always, it's time for you to step away from your vise and get out on the water. But maybe not today. Thanks, everybody.